In the 1970s, the personal computer revolution was in its infancy. Garages and basements across America were buzzing with the sound of soldering irons and the click-clack of keyboards as tech enthusiasts built their own machines. The air was thick with possibility, and the next big thing seemed just around the corner. It was in this climate of innovation that IBM, the behemoth of the computing world, found itself at a crossroads. On August 12, 1981, in a wood-paneled conference room at IBM's New York headquarters, executives gathered to discuss their entry into the personal computer market. The smell of coffee and cigarette smoke lingered in the air as they debated their next move. Enter Bill Gates, a young, bespectacled entrepreneur with a vision. His company Microsoft, founded in 1975 with childhood friend Paul Allen, had been making waves in the software industry. Gates saw an opportunity when he learned of IBM's plans to enter the PC market. But there was a catch. Microsoft didn't own an operating system suitable for IBM's needs. In a stroke of both genius and audacity, Gates approached Seattle Computer Products, a small company that had developed an operating system called 86DOS, also known as QDOS, or Quick and Dirty Operating System. On July 27, 1981, just weeks before IBM's deadline, Microsoft purchased 86DOS for a mere $75,000 without informing Seattle Computer Products of the IBM deal. The terms of the agreement were staggering in their short-sightedness. IBM allowed Microsoft to sell its own version, MS-DOS, to other computer manufacturers. A crucial clause that would ultimately make Bill Gates the wealthiest person in the world and give Microsoft controversial control of the entire PC industry. As the ink dried on the contract, few could have predicted the global impact this decision would cause in the tech industry. IBM, focused on hardware, saw the operating system as a minor component. They couldn't foresee that software would become the driving force of the personal computer revolution. Throughout the 1980s, the consequences of this decision became increasingly apparent. As IBM-compatible PCs flooded the market, all running Microsoft's MS-DOS, Bill Gates and his company found themselves at the center of a software empire. The beige boxes of the era, humming in offices and homes across the world, all spoke the same language, a language controlled by Microsoft. Meanwhile, IBM's fortunes began to wane. Their proprietary hardware standards were being replicated by cheaper clone manufacturers, all running Microsoft's software. By the late 1980s, IBM was struggling to maintain its dominance in a market it had helped create. The pivotal moment came in 1985 when Microsoft released Windows, a graphical user interface that ran on top of MS-DOS. As the 1990s dawned, Windows became the de facto standard for personal computing, cementing Microsoft's position and further eroding IBM's influence. Fast forward to today, and the repercussions of that fateful decision in 1981 are still being felt. Microsoft, under the leadership of Satya Nadella since 2014, has diversified beyond operating systems into cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and gaming. As of 2023, it stands as one of the most valuable companies in the world, with a market capitalization exceeding $2 trillion. IBM, on the other hand, has undergone a dramatic transformation. After years of declining PC sales, the company sold its personal computer division to Chinese manufacturer Lenovo in 2005. Today, IBM focuses on cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing, ironically, many of the same areas as Microsoft. The key players in this drama have seen their fortunes change as well. Bill Gates, though no longer involved in day-to-day operations at Microsoft, remains one of the world's wealthiest individuals and a prominent philanthropist. The executives at IBM who made the fateful decision have long since retired, their names largely forgotten. As for Seattle Computer Products, the company that originally developed DOS, they sued Microsoft in 1986 for withholding information about the IBM deal. The case was settled out of court for $925,000, a far cry from the billions the operating system would eventually help to generate. In the end, the story of Microsoft serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of foresight in business decisions. It's a reminder that in the fast-paced world of technology, today's minor agreements can become tomorrow's major regret. As we stand on the cusp of new technological revolutions in AI, quantum computing, and beyond, one can't help but wonder, what decisions being made today will shape the tech landscape of tomorrow? In the 1980s, the world of photography was on the verge of a huge transformation. Two industry giants, Eastman Kodak Company and Fuji Photofilm, stood at the peak of an industry built on light and chemistry, and their paths would soon diverge, leading one to reinvention and the other to ruin. Kodak, founded by George Eastman in 1888, had long enjoyed a monopoly over the American film and photography market. By the 1980s, Kodak controlled over 80% of the U.S. market share, and its signature slogan, "Kodak Moment," had become a symbol of treasured memories. On the other side of the Pacific, Fuji, established in 1934, was gaining ground. Known for their quality film stock and innovative technologies, Fuji aimed to break Kodak's stronghold. In Kodak's boardrooms, a critical decision was unfolding: how to approach digital photography. It has been widely speculated that the Kodak leadership deliberately decided to avoid digital products. But that is not entirely true. The leadership in Kodak believed that the digital camera market was too easy to enter, considering the fact that all a competitor needed was the sensor, lens, and other components that could be easily bought from third-party vendors, making it hard for them to create a monopoly like they had previously held for decades. In fact, Kodak did eventually embrace the digital age with varied success. The ultimate cause of their decline was one word: diversification. Fujifilm expanded to several other industries, designing products for the medical industry like X-ray imaging, foreseeing the rise of LCD technology. They began manufacturing components for LCD screens to operate. They even expanded into the cosmetics industry, cementing their global influence to this day. As the digital age took hold, demand for traditional film plummeted. Fujifilm's diversified business model allowed them to weather the storm, while Kodak found itself caught in the eye of the hurricane. Despite attempts to pivot towards digital with products like photo printing kiosks, their delayed response left them struggling to gain a foothold in the rapidly evolving market. In 2012, the unthinkable happened. After 134 years of operation, Kodak, the company that had once defined photography, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It was a moment that sent shockwaves through the industry, a stark reminder of the consequences of failing to adapt in an ever-changing world. Let's return to the 1970s. As personal computing was still in its infancy, two tech giants were about to make a decision that would reshape the entire industry. Our story begins in the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallways of Xerox's Palo Alto Research Center, known as PARC, where brilliant minds were pushing the boundaries of what computers could do. It was 1979, and the air was thick with possibility. Disco was dying, and a new era of technology was about to be born. Xerox PARC, nestled in the rolling hills of Silicon Valley, was a haven for some of the brightest minds in computer science. Here, researchers like Alan Kay, Butler Lampson, and Charles Simonyi were developing revolutionary concepts that would later become the foundation of modern computing. Among their groundbreaking inventions was the Graphical User Interface, or GUI. This was a radical departure from the text-based interfaces of the time. Instead of typing commands, users could interact with their computers using a mouse to click on icons and windows. It was intuitive, it was visual, and it was gathering dust on Xerox's shelves. It has been reported that in December 1979, Jobs struck a deal with Xerox. In exchange for allowing Xerox to buy 100,000 shares of Apple stock at its pre-IPO price, Xerox would grant Apple's engineers 3 days of access to Xerox PARC. It seemed like a straightforward transaction, but little did Xerox know that they were about to hand over the keys to the future. On the first day of the visit, the air was electric with anticipation. As the Xerox team booted up the Alto computer and demonstrated the GUI for the first time, Jobs was transfixed. He later recalled, "I thought it was the best thing I'd ever seen in my life." The decision to allow this visit was made by Xerox's top management, who saw Apple as a small niche player in the new personal computer market, not a potential threat to their business. This would prove to be one of the most costly miscalculations in business history. As the demonstrations continued over the next 2 days, the Apple team furiously took notes and asked questions. They were particularly impressed by the mouse, which allowed for precise control over the cursor. Jobs immediately saw the potential of these technologies and was determined to incorporate them into Apple's next computer. The controversy surrounding this decision began to simmer almost immediately. Many Xerox PARC employees felt that their work had been given away. Adele Goldberg, one of the researchers who had worked on the Alto, was particularly vocal in her opposition to the visit. She argued strenuously against it, warning that Apple would steal our technology. Her concerns were dismissed by management. In the months that followed, Apple worked feverishly to incorporate what they had seen at PARC into their own products. The result was the Lisa computer released in 1983, followed by the revolutionary Macintosh in 1984. Both featured a GUI and mouse that were strikingly similar to what Xerox had developed. As Apple's star rose, Xerox began to realize the magnitude of their mistake. In 1989, tensions finally boiled over into a lawsuit. Xerox sued Apple for copyright infringement, claiming that the Macintosh and Lisa interfaces violated Xerox's copyrights for the Alto and Star interfaces. The lawsuit dragged on for years, playing out against the backdrop of the tech boom of the early 1990s. Silicon Valley was transforming from a sleepy agricultural region to the beating heart of the global tech industry. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Finally, in 1994, the District Court of Northern California ruled in Apple's favor. The judge dismissed Xerox's claims, stating that Apple's GUI was different enough from Xerox's to not constitute copyright infringement. The court also noted that many of Xerox's claims were barred by the statute of limitations, as they had waited too long to file the lawsuit. The outcome of this decision reverberates to this day. Apple went on to become one of the most valuable companies in the world, with its user-friendly interfaces at the core of its success. The Macintosh and its successors revolutionized personal computing, making it accessible to the masses. Xerox, on the other hand, failed to capitalize on its groundbreaking innovations. While it remained a major player in the copier and printer market, it never became a significant force in personal computing. The company has undergone several restructurings and continues to struggle with the transition to a digital world. The key players in this drama have met various fates. Steve Jobs, of course, went on to become a tech icon before his untimely death in 2011. Many of the Xerox PARC researchers became respected figures in computer science, though they missed out on the immense wealth creation that followed Apple's success. In the end, this serves as a stark reminder of the importance of recognizing and capitalizing on innovation. Xerox had the technology that would define the future of computing, but lacked the vision to bring it to market. Apple, under Jobs' leadership, saw the potential and ran with it. It's a lesson that continues to shape business strategies in the fast-paced world of technology, where today's groundbreaking innovation can quickly become tomorrow's missed opportunity. In the unfolding story of American history, one man's decisions continue to shape our world today. His legacy, a complex tale filled with controversy and far-reaching consequences. From the halls of power to the streets of our cities, the echoes of his choices still reverberate. A war waged not against a foreign enemy, but against his own citizens. A healthcare system transformed, leaving millions grappling with rising costs and limited access. The very foundation of our economy shaken by a single stroke of his pen. In Southeast Asia, a secret campaign that would forever alter the course of a nation. And in the heart of Washington, a scandal that would shake the very pillars of American democracy. We'll explore how one administration's actions set in motion a chain of events that still impact our lives today. Join us as we uncover the truth behind these pivotal moments and their lasting effects on our society. This is the story of choices made half a century ago that continue to shape our present and our future. A tale of power, ambition, and the unforeseen consequences that have left an indelible mark on America and the world. As the 1960s drew to a close, the United States found itself at a crossroads. For nearly 3 decades, the Bretton Woods Agreement had anchored the world's currencies to the US dollar, which in turn was backed by gold. But by the early 1970s, this system was showing signs of strain. Foreign governments, wary of America's mounting deficits and inflationary pressures, began demanding gold in exchange for their dollar reserves. On a sweltering August day in 1971, Nixon retreated to the secluded presidential compound at Camp David. As the sun set on August 15th, Nixon made his decision. In a televised address that would shake the foundations of global finance, he announced the suspension of dollar convertibility to gold. The Bretton Woods system, born from the ashes of World War II, was effectively dead. The immediate aftermath was a mix of panic and relief. Financial markets reeled as currencies began to float freely against one another for the first time in generations. Some hailed it as a necessary step to regain economic sovereignty, while others decried it as the beginning of the end for fiscal responsibility. In the short term, the move allowed the U.S. to address its trade imbalances and gave the government more flexibility in monetary policy. But as the years rolled on, the long-term consequences became increasingly apparent. Without the discipline imposed by gold, governments around the world found it easier to print money and accumulate debt. The era of fiat currency had begun, ushering in decades of financial innovation and instability. Inflation, once a minor concern, became a persistent specter haunting economies worldwide. The value of money, no longer anchored to a tangible asset, became a matter of faith and trust in government institutions. As we stand here today, nearly half a century later, the ripples of Nixon's decision continue to shape our world. The rise of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin can be seen as a direct response to the uncertainties of the fiat system. These digital assets, with their promise of decentralization and scarcity, echo the role that gold once played in the global economy. The abandonment of the gold standard remains one of the most consequential economic decisions of the 20th century. It freed nations from the constraints of gold, but tethered them to the whims of central bankers and politicians. As we navigate the increasingly complex waters of global finance, we are left to wonder, in our quest for economic flexibility, did we sacrifice long-term stability? What will anchor our faith in the value of money? The gold standard may be a relic of the past, but its ghost continues to haunt our economic present and future. In the end, Nixon's decision didn't just change the rules of the game. It fundamentally altered our understanding of what money is and what it represents in our society. After World War II, healthcare in America was a patchwork of private insurance and out-of-pocket payments. For many, especially the elderly and poor, medical care was often out of reach. The 1960s brought some hope with Medicare and Medicaid, part of President Johnson's Great Society. But for most Americans, a big medical bill could still spell financial disaster. In 1971, President Nixon stood before Congress, proposing a new comprehensive health insurance system. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. Nixon met privately with John Ehrlichman, his domestic policy chief, and Edgar Kaiser of Kaiser Permanente. This meeting would change American healthcare forever. Now, here's where things get interesting. Nixon and Kaiser weren't just casual acquaintances. Kaiser had contributed significantly to Nixon's political campaigns. Their relationship raised eyebrows and questions about potential conflicts of interest. Even more revealing are the White House tapes from February 17, 1971. In a recorded conversation, Ehrlichman tells Nixon about Edgar Kaiser's permanent approach. He says, all the incentives are toward less medical care because the less care they give them, the more money they make. Nixon enthusiastically replies, not bad. This exchange suggests that Nixon was aware of and possibly supportive of a system that prioritized profits over patient care. It's a chilling moment that sheds light on the motivations behind the subsequent healthcare reforms. The result of these backroom dealings was the HMO Act of 1973. This law pumped federal money into developing health maintenance organizations, kicking off the era of managed care. It was sold as a way to make healthcare more efficient and cost-effective. But as HMOs spread, a troubling pattern emerged. Insurance companies, not doctors, were increasingly calling the shots on medical decisions. Many Americans found themselves fighting for access to care and battling denied claims. At the same time, the pharmaceutical industry was changing too. The US and New Zealand became the only countries allowing drug ads on TV. Combined with rules keeping foreign drug companies out, this created a market where a few big pharma companies had enormous power over drug prices and availability. The contrast with other countries became stark. Nations like Canada and Germany set up universal healthcare, getting better health results for less money. Meanwhile, in the US, more and more people went without insurance, and medical bankruptcy became all too common. By the early 2000s, the effects of these decisions were clear. Americans were paying more for healthcare than anyone else in the world, but weren't healthier for it. U.S. citizens crossing into Canada to buy affordable medicine became a sad symbol of a broken system. Today, as we continue to debate healthcare reform, the shadow of Nixon's decisions looms large. The recorded conversations and the questionable relationship with Kaiser reveal a system that was, from its inception, more focused on profits than patient care. The question now is, can America overcome decades of entrenched interests and misguided policies to create a healthcare system that truly works for everyone? As costs keep rising and millions still lack adequate coverage, finding an answer becomes more urgent every day. The health of the nation hangs in the balance, waiting for a solution to a crisis that's been brewing for half a century. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, America was a powder keg of social and political unrest. The Vietnam War raged on, protests rocked college campuses, and a deeply divided nation looked toward the 1972 presidential election with trepidation. It was in this charged atmosphere that Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States, made a fateful decision that would lead to his downfall. Nixon, paranoid and obsessed with maintaining power, had long been fixated on his political enemies. He saw threats everywhere, in the press, in the Democratic Party, even within his own administration. This siege mentality led him to establish a secret White House Special Investigations Unit, nicknamed the Plumbers, tasked with plugging leaks and gathering intelligence on his opponents. But Nixon's hunger for information and advantage knew no bounds. In June 1971, he ordered a break-in at the office of Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist, hoping to discredit the man who had leaked the Pentagon Papers. This illegal act was just the beginning. As the 1972 election approached, Nixon's re-election committee, led by former Attorney General John Mitchell, devised a plan to sabotage the Democratic campaign. They called it Operation Gemstone, a series of dirty tricks and espionage activities aimed at undermining Nixon's opponents. The plan culminated in the fateful Watergate break-in on June 17, 1972. A team of burglars, led by former CIA officer James McCord, broke into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate complex. Their mission: to plant surveillance devices and photograph sensitive documents. But the burglars were caught red-handed, and what might have remained a third-rate burglary quickly unraveled into a scandal of epic proportions. Nixon's direct involvement in the crime became apparent in the days and weeks following the break-in. On June 23, 1972, just 6 days after the burglary, Nixon met with his chief of staff, H.R. Haldeman, in the Oval Office. In a conversation captured by the secret White House taping system, Nixon agreed to use the CIA to obstruct the FBI's investigation into the Watergate break-in. This smoking gun conversation revealed Nixon's active participation in the cover-up. He directed his staff to lie to federal investigators, authorized the payment of hush money to the burglars, and attempted to use government agencies to impede the investigation. As the scandal unfolded, Nixon's obsession with secrecy and control only deepened. He fired Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox in the infamous Saturday Night Massacre, triggering a constitutional crisis. He fought tooth and nail to prevent the release of the White House tapes, invoking executive privilege in a desperate attempt to hide his culpability. But the truth could not be contained. When the Supreme Court unanimously ordered Nixon to turn over the tapes, his fate was sealed. The House Judiciary Committee laid out the case for impeachment in stark terms. Article 1 charged Nixon with obstruction of justice, detailing 9 specific ways in which he had attempted to impede the investigation. Article 2 accused him of abuse of power, citing his misuse of federal agencies to harass political opponents and cover up illegal activities. And Article 3 charged him with contempt of Congress for defying subpoenas for evidence. Nixon's direct involvement in these crimes, the obstruction of justice, the abuse of power, the contempt for the rule of law, formed the core of the impeachment case against him. It was not just the initial break-in, but the elaborate cover-up and Nixon's attempts to use the power of the presidency to evade justice that led to his downfall.
Good evening. This is the 37th time I have spoken to you from this office, where so many decisions have been made that shape the history of this nation. Each time I have done so to discuss with you some matter that I believe affected the national interest. In all the decisions I have made in my public life, I have always tried to do what was best for the nation. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
In the end, facing certain impeachment and conviction, Nixon chose to resign rather than face the humiliation of being removed from office. But his resignation did not erase the stain of his actions. The Watergate scandal exposed the dark underbelly of American politics, revealing a president who had betrayed his oath of office and the trust of the American people. As we look back on Richard Nixon's legacy, we're left with a haunting question. Did one man really screw up the world? From his early days in politics, Nixon was no stranger to controversy and defeat. Remember, this is a man who lost his first presidential bid to the young, charismatic JFK. He then suffered a humiliating defeat in the California governor's race, leading to his famous "You won't have Nixon to kick around anymore" speech. The public ridicule was brutal. These early setbacks seemed to fuel a deep-seated need to win at all costs. It's like Nixon was always fighting against some invisible enemy, always trying to prove himself. Let's connect the dots. The gold standard? Nixon's decision to abandon it wasn't just about money. It was about power. The power to print money without limits, to fund wars without asking permission. Sound familiar? It's the same drive that led him to secretly expand the Vietnam War into Cambodia. The war on drugs? On the surface, it was about public health. But dig deeper, and you'll find a tool for political control, targeting minority communities and anti-war protesters. It's like Nixon found a way to legally go after his enemies. And what about healthcare? Those backroom deals with Edgar Kaiser that led to HMOs? It's the same old story of trusted leadership prioritizing powerful friends and big business over the average American. These policies didn't just affect America. They rippled out across the globe, affecting economies, drug policies, and healthcare systems worldwide. But here's the twist. Nixon didn't act alone. He tapped into existing currents of fear, greed, and prejudice. He didn't create these problems out of thin air. He exploited and amplified them. So, did one man screw up the world? Not exactly, but Nixon's actions were like lighting a match in a room full of gas. He didn't create the flammable atmosphere, but he sure as hell set it ablaze. Today, we're still living in the world Nixon helped shape. Our money isn't backed by gold. The war on drugs rages on. Healthcare remains a contentious issue. And the tension between presidential power and the rule of law? Well, that's as relevant as ever. Nixon's story isn't just about one man's flaws. It's a cautionary tale about power, blind ambition, and the long-lasting consequences of political decisions. It reminds us that what happens in the White House doesn't stay in the White House. It ripples out across the nation and the world.
Today has seen the culmination of what some are calling the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. Markets have tumbled to historic lows, wiping out trillions of dollars in wealth in a matter of hours. Panic has gripped the nation as people flock to banks in droves, desperately trying to withdraw their life savings before it's too late. Lines stretch around the block as individuals fear for the safety of their funds.
The year was 2008, a time when global financial markets were on the brink of collapse. Amidst the chaos, a mysterious figure known only as Satoshi Nakamoto published a proposal white paper online that would change the course of our financial history. Set in the backdrop of economic uncertainty and growing distrust of traditional institutions, Satoshi's creation, Bitcoin, promised an alternative to the traditional banking system. But who was this elusive person, and what drove them to create such a revolutionary concept? My personal introduction to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin was from reading an article from Wired magazine titled "The Rise and Fall of Bitcoin." While I was definitely intrigued by the concept of a decentralized currency, I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that someone would create something so significant and not want to be identified. Over a decade has passed since then. Bitcoin has become a global phenomenon, and yet the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto remains an unsolved mystery. Recently, it was added to the stock market in the form of ETFs, making it a government-recognized financial currency. In this episode, we will investigate new evidence, including subpoenaed testimony by people directly involved, in an attempt to find the truth, uncensored. In order to understand Satoshi, you need to understand the concept of cryptocurrency. And in order to understand cryptocurrency, you need to understand cryptography. Because before it was a currency, it served another purpose, one that has gone back to the days of the Africans in ancient Egypt, where stone tablets held messages only decipherable by those with exclusive knowledge. Fast forward through time, and you'll find cryptic messages were used to shape the course of several events. Modern cryptography developed heroes, but the good times were short-lived. Governments deemed encrypted citizen communications a threat, sparking what's come to be known as the crypto wars, where encryption specialists and cryptology researchers wanted to provide everyday citizens with the option to communicate privately. The crypto wars have played a significant role in the development and adoption of Bitcoin. The conflicts between governments seeking control over encrypted data and privacy advocates pushing for stronger encryption highlighted the need for decentralized, secure digital currencies that could not be controlled by any single entity. The crypto wars also inspired the creation of decentralized open-source cryptographic tools like OpenSSL, which are widely used in Bitcoin's network infrastructure. The development of these tools sparked the widespread adoption of cryptography for both privacy and security purposes, paving the way for the growth of decentralized networks like Bitcoin. The crypto wars contributed to a growing distrust of centralized authorities and institutions, leading many individuals to seek out alternative systems that could provide greater control over their own data and finances. Bitcoin's promise of financial freedom, privacy, and decentralization resonated with this burgeoning movement, attracting enthusiasts and early adopters who believed in the power of cryptography to disrupt traditional models of governance. The situation got so intense that even T-shirts bearing the source code for encryption software created by the cryptography activist were banned from being exported from the United States. This same community of encryption enthusiasts would later become the people that Satoshi Nakamoto reached out to on the fateful day in 2009 when Satoshi announced his research paper, which would ultimately change the course of our future. In 2008, the world was on the brink of chaos. Banks were collapsing, trust in financial institutions waned, and people sought a new way to exchange value without the interference or control of central authorities. In this tumultuous environment, Satoshi Nakamoto emerged from the shadows, armed with an idea: Bitcoin. Satoshi circulated the Bitcoin proposal white paper on a cryptography mailing list, introducing the concept of a peer-to-peer electronic cash system that would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. The white paper described Bitcoin's innovative solution to the double spending problem, using a peer-to-peer network that timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming an immutable and transparent public ledger. The blockchain. It outlined the core components of Bitcoin, including the decentralized peer-to-peer network, the mining process for validating transactions and creating new Bitcoins, and the use of cryptographic proof instead of trust in a third party. The clock was ticking. The global financial crisis raged on, and Satoshi knew time was of the essence. So on January 3rd, 2009, marked the launch of Bitcoin. On January 3rd, 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto created the Genesis block of Bitcoin, which is the first block in the Bitcoin blockchain. The Genesis block contained the following text embedded within it. The Times 03 Jan 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This was a headline from the Times newspaper on that date, referring to the global financial crisis and bank bailouts occurring at the time. The Genesis block also contained the first 50 bitcoins that were mined by Satoshi. This historic event marked the birth of Bitcoin and its underlying blockchain technology. It's important to remember that Satoshi Nakamoto was in touch with several people over the years before vanishing without a trace. From the recently uncovered emails between Satoshi and early Bitcoin supporters like Marty Malmi and Adam Back, we learned several key things. Satoshi Nakamoto wasn't just interested in Bitcoin as an investment. They believed it was meant for everyday use. Satoshi wanted to clear up the idea that Bitcoin was only for making money quickly and emphasized its potential as a real currency. When it came to Bitcoin's anonymity, Satoshi was careful. They knew it wasn't completely anonymous and encouraged people to understand both its strengths and weaknesses. Satoshi thought it was important for everyone to see Bitcoin clearly. Satoshi also cared a lot about Bitcoin's impact on the environment. Concerned about the energy it used, they believed that the proof-of-work system would eventually save more energy than traditional banking. Working with others was key for Satoshi. They teamed up closely with people like Malmi, creating a strong sense of community and ensuring that improvements to Bitcoin were made together. Satoshi had a strong belief that Bitcoin could handle large numbers of transactions at lower costs. But what really stands out is Satoshi's decision to stay anonymous. This choice was crucial. By keeping their identity a secret, Satoshi protected the core of Bitcoin, a decentralized network without a single person or group in control. Their anonymity served many purposes. It kept their personal life private, kept unwanted attention away that could have been dangerous, ensured the focus stayed on the technology, and prevented any single person or organization from gaining too much power. This aligned Bitcoin perfectly with its origins in the cypherpunk movement, which valued privacy and independence above everything else. On March 6, 2014, Newsweek boldly claimed to have uncovered Satoshi's identity, pegging him as Dorian S. Nakamoto, a resident of California. This revelation sparked a frenzy, culminating in a chaotic media pursuit and relentless scrutiny of Dorian Nakamoto. In the midst of this whirlwind, the true Satoshi Nakamoto emerged briefly from obscurity. On March 7, 2014, utilizing their account on the P2P Foundation website, Satoshi issued a brief statement. "I am not Dorian Nakamoto." This marked their first public communication in years. At the time of this statement, Bitcoin was valued at approximately $629. A significant ascent from its humble origins. By the moment of Satoshi's last post in 2014, Bitcoin had undergone remarkable growth, indicating that Satoshi Nakamoto, the estimated possessor of roughly 1 million Bitcoins, could have reaped substantial financial gains had they chosen to liquidate their holdings. Nevertheless, despite Bitcoin's meteoric rise in value, Satoshi's wallets have remained untouched for over a decade. This intriguing detail adds another layer of complexity to the mystery surrounding their identity and intentions. Satoshi Nakamoto's decision to maintain anonymity and inactivity, despite possessing immense wealth, continues to provoke speculation and intrigue. Satoshi Nakamoto's story is a powerful reminder that one person really can change the world. By creating Bitcoin, Satoshi not only revolutionized the financial industry, but also sparked a global movement towards decentralized currency and greater financial independence. What's truly inspiring is that Satoshi did this without seeking any personal glory or financial gain. Satoshi chose to stay anonymous and never touched the vast fortune that could have been theirs, showing a rare and profound selflessness. This absence of ego and focus on the greater good highlight that real innovation and change come from a place of dedication to a vision rather than personal ambition. In a world where success is often measured by fame and wealth, Satoshi's actions remind us that meaningful change can come from humility and a genuine desire to help others. Satoshi's legacy shows us that one person with a transformative idea and a selfless approach can make a significant impact. This story encourages us to follow our own visions with integrity and to focus on the positive impact we can have on the world, proving that true success lies not in what we gain, but in what we give. In the late 1990s, as the new millennium approached, the home entertainment landscape was dominated by a behemoth in blue and yellow. Blockbuster Video, with its ubiquitous storefronts and familiar torn ticket logo, reigned supreme. Families across America spent their Friday nights perusing aisles of VHS tapes and newly minted DVDs, the smell of buttered popcorn lingering in the air, and the sound of plastic cases snapping shut echoing throughout the store. Meanwhile, in Scotts Valley, California, a small startup was about to change everything. Netflix, founded just 3 years earlier by tech entrepreneurs Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, was pioneering a radical new concept: DVD rentals by mail. The idea had struck Hastings like a bolt of lightning after being charged a $40 late fee for Apollo 13 at his local Blockbuster. As the new millennium dawned, Netflix was struggling to find its footing. With just 300,000 subscribers and losses mounting, Hastings and Randolph made a fateful decision. In the spring of 2000, they flew to Dallas, Texas, home of Blockbuster's corporate headquarters. The meeting that followed would go down in business history as one of the greatest missed opportunities of all time. In a conference room adorned with movie posters and the faint smell of microwave popcorn, Hastings and Randolph laid out their vision to Blockbuster's executive team. Their proposal: Netflix would run Blockbuster's brand online, while Blockbuster would promote Netflix in its stores. The asking price? A mere $50 million. The tension in the room was thick as Blockbuster's executives exchanged glances. After what seemed like an eternity, the verdict was delivered. With a dismissive wave of their hands, they all but laughed the Netflix founders out of the room. To Blockbuster, Netflix was nothing more than a niche market, a blip on the radar of their video rental empire. As Hastings and Randolph left Dallas, the weight of rejection heavy on their shoulders, they couldn't have known that this moment would be the catalyst for one of the most dramatic reversals of fortune in business history. Over the next decade, Netflix would evolve at a breakneck pace. In 2002, they went public at $15 per share. By 2007, they had delivered their billionth DVD. But the real game changer came in 2010 when Netflix pivoted to streaming, forever altering how the world consumed entertainment. Meanwhile, Blockbuster clung desperately to its outdated business model. In 2004, Antioco finally launched Blockbuster online, but it was too little, too late. The company hemorrhaged money, closing stores by the hundreds. In a desperate bid for survival, they eliminated late fees in 2005, but the damage was done. On September 23, 2010, in a cruel twist of fate, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy protection. As the last stores closed their doors, the once mighty giant became a cautionary tale about failing to innovate. Today, Netflix stands as a global entertainment powerhouse with over 230 million subscribers worldwide and a market capitalization that has soared past $100 billion. Its success has reshaped entire industries, from television production to movie distribution. Blockbuster, once synonymous with movie nights and family entertainment, has been reduced to a single store in Bend, Oregon, a nostalgic relic of a bygone era. In the end, it wasn't just about DVDs by mail or streaming video. It was about understanding the fundamental shifts in consumer behavior and having the courage to embrace change. As I reflect on this pivotal moment in business history, I can't help but wonder, how many other Blockbusters are out there, blind to the Netflixes of tomorrow? These stories highlight the danger of underestimating emerging technologies and changing consumer behaviors. Kodak couldn't envision a world without film, just as Blockbuster couldn't fathom movie rentals without physical stores. These stories underscore the importance of fostering a culture of innovation and being willing to take calculated risks. Companies must be prepared to disrupt themselves before someone else does.
In the late 1960s, a revolution in portable music was quietly brewing. The compact cassette, developed by Philips and Lou Ottens, opened a new realm of possibilities. Yet, it wasn't until a Brazilian inventor named Andreas Pavel envisioned a music player for walking that the seed for a profound cultural shift was planted. In the mid-1970s, in the serene settings of St. Moritz, Pavel, a passionate lover of music and a tinkerer at heart, dreams up a device that allows one to enjoy music intimately, on the go. He calls it the stereo belt. Pavel's invention is groundbreaking, a precursor to the personal audio revolution. He patents his creation, unaware of the storm that is brewing on the horizon. Despite Pavel's amazing ingenuity, his stereo belt lacked the technological finesse and practicality to conquer the challenges of portable audio devices. Enter Masaru Ibuka, co-founder of Sony. On his business travels, Ibuka found himself burdened by the bulky TC-D5 cassette recorder, craving a more portable solution. That didn't feel like he was carrying a car radiator through the bloody airport. So he tasked Norio Oga with creating a playback-only stereo device. The result was groundbreaking. The Walkman TPS L2, a sleek blue and silver portable stereo. On July 1st, 1979, it hit the Japanese market, shattering expectations by selling over 30,000 units in 2 months, far exceeding the predicted 5,000 monthly sales. As the 80s rolled in, the Walkman became synonymous with cool. It was more than a device. It was a personal statement. It became an icon of 1980s culture, even entering the Oxford English Dictionary in 1986. It also helped set off the aerobics movement, with millions using it as a workout companion. The personal, solitary nature of the Walkman experience was the beginning of the intimate relationship we now have with technology, paving the way for devices like personal computers and smartphones. But this shift was not without its challenges as the Walkman continues on its trajectory of global domination. Pavel, the inventor of the stereo belt, watches from the sidelines, his invention overshadowed. Confident in his belief that Sony's product infringes on his intellectual property, Pavel embarks on a David versus Goliath legal battle. He files lawsuits in multiple countries, seeking recognition and compensation. The legal battles are intense, a testament to Pavel's determination against a corporate behemoth. Meanwhile, in the United States, the successful Walkman has begun to spark a public safety debate. The mayor of Woodbridge, New Jersey, deems the Walkman a public hazard. He argues that pedestrians wearing headphones are distracted and more prone to accidents, and places a ban on Walkmans in public areas. Sony's response: to all the shade. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And they kept innovating. First, the WM2, a compact version in 1981, to the waterproof WM-F5 in 1983. That was obviously ahead of its time, even a solar-powered model way back in 1993. Each version brought something new to the table, keeping the brand not just relevant, but iconic. These days, tech companies don't innovate unless they are required to by the government. Let's fast forward to the 2000s. After years of litigation, Sony and Pavel reach a settlement. Pavel is acknowledged as the inventor of the personal stereo, a moral and financial victory. But the turn of the millennium also brought a shift in the melody. The digital age was upon us, and with it came MP3s and a new challenger. On a chilly October day, Steve Jobs unveils a sleek, white device. It's not just a new player, it's the Walkman of a new era. 1,000 songs in your pocket, he declares. The iPod wasn't just about storing music. It was about storing possibility. Its arrival sends ripples through Silicon Valley. Sony scrambles. They release their own digital players, but the magic isn't there. The Walkman, once a symbol of cutting-edge technology, struggles to find its footing in the new digital days. The iPod, meanwhile, soars. It becomes more than a device. It's the new cultural icon, a fashion statement, a way of life. Then, Apple's iTunes platform revolutionizes how music is bought and distributed, turning the entire industry on its head. But this isn't a tale of defeat. No, my friend, it's a story of evolution, of how one legend paves the way for another. The Walkman spirit lives on in every smartphone and every digital player that followed. It's a story of innovation, adaptation, and the power of music in our lives. The Walkman, in essence, is a melody that continues to play in the hearts of millions. A device perfectly tuned to an entire generation. A vivid representation of innovation and personal freedom, and will forever be known as a product that changed the world.
In the blink of an eye, a choice is made. An ambitious coder's vision sparks a revolution that would change the financial world forever. A corporate blunder that paved the way for a tiny startup to conquer an empire. In the ruthless tech race, two college-age renegades create companies that accumulate so much power. They end up in the crosshairs of the U.S. government. Some decisions change a life. Others shape the entire world. The ripple effect. Decisions that changed everything.